Hi, folks. How you doing? RussellTrueResults303.com. Check out that website. Link in the description box. Mind, body, spirit, fitness. Putting the healing back in health. Coming at you today with a video about the feminist movement, right? The feminine movement. Women, I guess, becoming more involved in the workplace. So I had this thought. Was Jesus the original creator of this movement, of the feminist movement? And hopefully I don't catch a lot of flack for this one. But I just thought about this the other day when I was kind of wandering around, walking and working. And I thought about Jesus being the initiator of this movement of women into power. And you might think it's weird, especially since I'm Catholic, right? In the Catholic Church, there are no female priests, but hear me out. So if you look at a lot of historians, and I think even some Catholics will kind of admit or at least talk about it as it being a possibility that Jesus's ministry was funded by women. So they were the ones who bankrolled this whole thing, right? They were the ones giving him money while he could walk around and preach to the people, right? So what does that mean? Somehow these women had money. Sometimes they'll say it was, they were widows and had the money. Maybe they had their own businesses. Nobody knows, right? But in that time, at least, women didn't have any power, right? That's what they say. Women were below men at that point. But Jesus found these rich women or wealthy women, and they funded him while he walked around. So what does that mean? They were women of power in some way, shape, or form, and Jesus was the spiritual one, right? And then all the priests were the men that became priests were the spiritual leaders, right? So I heard this weird statistic a while back, and I don't know if it's true or not, but they say it says women are happier in the workplace versus men, and men are happier as stay-at-home dads than women are being stay-at-home mothers. So take it with a grain of salt. I don't know, but if so, it's interesting. I could kind of see it. It seems like women are more social creatures versus men. We're not really that social, in my opinion. Our social is you sit down, you watch the game, and nobody talks to each other. You're just quiet. So women are more social. So I could see that, how women are happier at work. You're more social at work than you are. And then I started to think about it. A lot of people will say women are more emotional. That's why, some people will say I wouldn't vote for a female president because they're too emotional. But when you think about it, everything in the world is really emotional. There's highs, ups, and downs, like the stock market. One day it's high, oh my God, and then it drops 500 points, and then it's right back up. So if you think about it, if you were to put the stock market and that statistic on the graph, it would be emotional, like they try to say women are, right? So it follows kind of that same pattern if you were to put it on a graph. Same thing with any market, same thing with any business, right? There's good years, bad years, ups and downs. And I would see that more as like if you put it on a graph, once again, with the emotional scale, where they would say of more female than men. Men aren't as emotional. We're more enclosed, right? And I can see that's, then the same thing. Now, this is where I'm going into spirituality then. And that's where people will say the downfall of today's society or the downfall of Christianity is everybody being on this, oh, well, that's how I feel. I feel, I feel, blah, 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 blah. Well, that's not what Christianity is about. It's like they always say, there's a difference between trying to be good and being a Christian, right? Because even Jesus says, doesn't the sinner still love those who love them? That's why I say you should love your enemy, right? So it's taking emotion out of it. And that's why maybe Jesus created these male figures, and that's why more men should be the spiritual leaders, because Christianity is not about how I feel versus how you feel. It's about the truth, what's right or wrong, right? And that's where men have more of that connection. We're more of this is how it is. Versus women, they're more emotional up and down, like the business world is, like the investment world is, like almost everything else in the world is ups and downs, versus spirituality is concrete. So, and since back in Jesus's time, men dominated everything, they suppressed it. So yes, they suppressed women, but not in the sense that they suppressed them because they didn't want them to have power or anything like that, right? They suppressed them because they were men, they were greedy, and they wanted power. But unfortunately, maybe Jesus was trying to create that new trend and saying, yes, women should be more in that world of power, and men need to be the spiritual leaders, where nowadays it's completely flip-flop, right? If you go into church, women are more spiritual than men nowadays. Men, for some reason, it takes them longer to mature into a spiritual realm than women. Same with me. I didn't become spiritual until I was like 27, 28, versus a lot of the women I meet, they're really spiritual at a young age and they grow into it. Men kind of stumble onto it. But now we're in this world where women are trying to be more successful and career driven, which is fine. But you just need to remember not to lose your femininity, right? Where they always say women are sacrificing motherhood just to become successful. That's not what it's about. You still got to embrace the beauty of the woman, and that is being able to give birth and your emotions. And I think women, maybe you should be taking those emotions to work a little bit. Like I said, everything's up and down anyway in the financial world and in the world in general. Versus spirituality, in my opinion, being a Christian, being a Catholic, it's clear cut. It's this way. Jesus said this. You can't really sugarcoat it. They try to sugarcoat it nowadays, but you can't really sugarcoat it. So, I hope that was food for thought. Jesus, the original creator of the feminist movement? Maybe. I would say probably so. And it was just the greed and the hardened of heart of men that didn't allow it to happen, right? And why isn't it in the Bible? Because once again, Jesus said, there's a lot of things, or even in the Bible, it says there were a lot of things that were not written that Jesus spoke of. And if you did, it could fill up, I can't remember the exact term, but multiple thousands of books, or the entire world of knowledge that he gave away. And maybe, the spiritual leaders didn't like that. They wanted to control both. They wanted to control the spiritual world and the physical world. When maybe Jesus was trying to say, hey, let these women kind of take over. Things would be a little bit better. I know you ladies might like that. That was like the big snowstorm they just had on the East Coast, right? There was a video on YouTube about how all the senators, I think, or the congressmen, whichever one it was, none of the men showed up to work the next day, but almost all the women did. So when they had that meeting, they have a video and it's all women are there and there's not one male in the room. And I think it's probably not too likely that all men decided to take a restroom break together, right? So, food for thought. I hope that helps. Subscribe to the channel. Share and like these videos.